Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Left 4 Dead 2. I rewatched the trailer that loads when you first load the game, and boy is that really kind of a bait and switch for what the game actually is. I don't think there's really a way to prompt it to play without just exiting out and loading it, but um, all of the zombies are way better animated, and all the camera angles are way more zoomed in on the faces and the depictions of the zombies compared to the very far or zoomed out camera that you would always have to have, really, in a 4-player game, unless you're just going to make it a very zoomed in experience that happens to have 3 other players that would be zooming bullets past your head and you wouldn't even be able to see where they are, nor would you be able to really save them or help them in any way. Um, but certainly it highlights that whoever was in charge of making the trailer, which I suspect may have been a completely different group of people, knew that zombie games should be like that and um, not a multiplayer experience. So we finished the parish and we did the first part of the developer commentary on the parish. And then after that, oddly, the sacrifice from the first game is here. Then all of the other main scenarios from the first game in order are here, and then Coldstream would be the next thing that is new, and then The Last Stand. Um, 12 years later, I think it is also worth mentioning that, yep, this is the Left 4 Dead 2 characters. The Left 4 Dead 1 characters are showing up as skins in other games, which highlights part of the flaw in Left 4 Dead 2's concept. There really was no reason to get rid of the characters in the first game. They should have just come back. Like, you could have saved your animators quite a bit of time by, instead of making a new character design and a new personality for Nick, Rochelle, Coach, and Alice, instead just make a aged version or a battle hardened version of the 3 characters from the first game. So if we were to look at the sacrifice, for instance, here we can say um, age up battle hardened Bill, put him in a different outfit. Um, doesn't matter if canonically in the sacrifice he dies or not. Just bring him back. They already said these were movies. Uh, age up battle hardened Zoe. Same with Lewis. Same with Francis. And in all fairness, I will say Francis and Lewis are kind of boring characters. If they were ever going to be allowed to make a Left 4 Dead 3, which Valve just cannot let any of their games hit the number 3 before Half-Life 3 comes out. Otherwise, people will flip out. Although, frankly, Valve should probably just do that. It would make a lot more sense to do that. But it would be fairly easy to merge the character and backstories that we hear, the lines of dialogue we hear from Ellis into Francis. It would be fairly easy to merge the backstory and dialogue from Coach into Lewis. I imagine it's fairly easy to merge the I'm going to make an argument here that perhaps it would be fairly easier to merge the backstory of Nick into Zoe and then the female from Left 4 Dead 2 into Bill as a character. Or maybe you go Coach into Bill and the female from Left 4 Dead 2 into Lewis. We really haven't heard a lot of backstory of any of the characters enough that there would be a real problem with it doing any of that. But the point is, they should have doubled down on the first group of people maybe added one character, not 4 new characters who never really interact. They do interact in the passing for a brief second, but then they never really interact in any other way with any of the other characters. Ellis is really the only character that talks a lot, whereas everybody else, Coach, Rochelle, and Nick, are kind of non-characters. I have no idea what Rochelle's job was or personality is. We assumed Coach was a coach. I think I heard a line of dialogue saying Nick was a gambler. I'm gonna play as Ellis actually, just so that we can maybe see if we can trigger some of the other characters to talk. But yeah, it would have been so smart to double down on the first characters, try and develop them more, try to make them likable, try to more likable and more fleshed out as characters, instead of starting all over again. Because the idea of having Left 4 Dead be effectively an anthology series, this is weird. We have never seen a flyover.
This way. Weapons up. Let's go.
So that was an interesting cutscene. We've never seen that before. We also have to assume that this, by the looks of this looks like this might just be a running in place, like gauntlet type experience. Apparently we can't get handguns and we're only going to get 1 health kit. Alright. Still getting the hint.
Reloading.
So this feels like they've expanded a sequence out. See, it would be interesting, I guess, if maybe she was a nurse or something.
Reloading.
But as far as Rochelle, we have no idea who she is. She could just be a housewife. This definitely feels like a sequence that was designed to be in a bigger scenario. Just something that was probably somewhat left on the cutting room floor. It is kind of a genius experiment as far as, oh, there's a forest fire. Because you are down this way, you don't you don't have the skybox issue, because it makes a lot of sense to see a sky. I bet we get it at some point. It changes to dark, nighttime, maybe even rainy. Wow, that looked like
Reloading.
Another zombie jumped out of the body of the hunter. So
Reloading.
once you get up to this point, you can see that they've got thick bushes that turn into just entire walls of foliage.
Reload.
Let's see, is there something in this? Nope, that's just a zombie corpse.
Hey, I'm reloading.
Reloading.
So yeah, this may be a slightly more linear path than what we're normally given, even though most paths are very linear. Here they've reused graffiti where arguably we will never see this graffiti again, so it may have been a bit wasteful to load that image. Somebody just picked up a gun. So there was like one gun. Guess we can get that. Here's another gun. Great. Picking up a gun. Drops the other thing, however.
Hunter! Hey, I'm reloading. Reloading!
And so I wonder. They're coming up and over. Interesting. Feels like it's not particularly programmed well.
Reloading.
Reloading.
This is a game where you also end up reloading way too much. Just here you can see the zombies are floating on the edges of the bridge, so clearly they made a bit of a mistake as far as labeling some of it as a spawnable area.
Reloading.
Let's see, can they even figure out how to run up here?
Reload.
Not before somebody either shoots me from behind or
Reloading.
shoots me, shoots the zombies.
Reloading. Look out now.
Feels like there could have been a secondary path that way. I wouldn't be surprised if what happens here
Reload.
is these last two levels are really simplistic and just kind of
I'm a reload.
Reloading.
I don't know what the right word to be is. Just brief, abrupt, kind of unpolished. At a certain point, using the phrase polished might even be the wrong phrase because it may be fairly polished, it just may be a unsatisfactory amount of content. The scenarios up until this point have
Hey, I'm
been
reloading.
fairly good
Smoker!
at offering like
Reloading.
the scenarios have been fairly good about giving us a decent amount of content up until this point. They've not been super long, but they've not been super short either.
I got some ammo right here.
Interesting that there's so many bottles and yet none of them are Molotovs. Which, I guess that's to be somewhat expected.
Grenade! Charger! Shoot me again. Reloading. Shoot me again. I dare you. Jockey!
So they've got you basically forced into this area. See, they wanted a very linear experience. And this definitely feels like that this was... I don't even know if I really want to call this an experiment, because I imagine in early levels of development you would have had levels that were super linear like this and been able to play test that and just realize that there is kind of nothing to that kind of game, and that as a concept would not have been acceptable. or at least appreciated by players. This concept fails, I think, pretty badly, because all you would need is a horde or a smoker. You can see these guys are glitching, but all you would need is a horde or a smoker to pull you off of that path, and you really wouldn't have a backup option.
All right, let's not open this door till we're ready.
And there's basically nothing that you can collect. Like, there is... What does this say? Safe house? Okay. Might as well open this bunker door. I guess the concept is not particularly a bad concept, that you would want to try and find a like safety bunker. If you could find one. Kind of the first rule about having a safety shelter, though, is you don't tell anybody about your safety shelter. So, and usually there's not a ton of permitting and records that people could find.
Reload. Yeah, safe house, y'all.
This definitely feels like a scripted experience.
Hey, I'm reloading.
Where zombies were designed to spawn. Chet was here. Leave now, they're coming. Alright.
They ain't taking us alive.
Yeah, and that was pathetically short. 17 minutes. And I was kind of trying to look at everything. 17 minutes and a linear path. That would have been a fine section to connect to some other sections. And there's plenty of places where the other scenarios could have connected. Also, since in multiplayer it randomizes, like they write these stories and try to make them in such a way that they would feel like the story always connects. It doesn't quite work, but it works well enough. Let's see. Unless we're making a huge mistake and we have to run back through this area, it would probably make sense to try and heal some people.
For this anyhow, I ain't gonna get shot.
Notice that basically nobody is talking. So I play as Ellis.
That fixed me up real good.
There's no extra lines of dialogue. Now that may just be because this is like cutting room floor content and they never paid the voice actors to voice it. This is an interesting experiment for as much as the game has been messing with fire visuals in that first level and darkness visuals and pretty much everything else.
Reloading.
Oh, I was wrong. There is some.
Hey, some guns here.
Let's see. That one's too slow. That one's good.
I'll try this rifle.
Up. So, lens flare, solar blur, whatever you would call that, is an interesting idea, having the sun in your eyes. Now they're trying to go a little bit rockier. Yeah, I just healed up and it took out a quarter of my life on easy. And then the spitter took out another 5 or 6%. of my life. The game is not particularly fair in a lot of scenarios. So it seems to me like the water is going to run faster, and these guys aren't even running towards me. I don't think they can find a path towards me because of those rocks. So that's a failure in pathfinding. And clearly the trick here that they would have had to do is they would have had to make every path past this point have a ramp up so that you could go back. That way the zombies could reach you. So yeah, somewhere here there needed to have been a smoother piece of wood or something that the zombies could pathfind on.
I'm a reload.
Well, all this feels like is that we're gonna run towards the sun.
What the hell is that?
Is this supposed to be the first time we've seen a gargantuan? Problem is we saw these in the first game, so we would have needed a much bigger gargantuan. And there was enough room here, frankly, for
everybody up the ladder.
Much bigger gargantuan type creature as a sub-boss or boss. And see, here we have a car, oil tanker, and that way we can see some zombies and some fire. This is a interesting, different kind of ladder. Now we're transitioning into a city.
Ammo here.
And yeah, this is what the parish did very well, is introduce the concept of
Hey, can somebody wait up? I gotta heal.
Introduce the concept of just kind of consistently transitioning from one area to another. Those are not Molotovs. Yep. It's not a bad idea that
Hey, I'm reloading.
everywhere where a Molotov could spawn, a bottle would spawn otherwise. That could help the player learn that Molotovs sometimes spawn in this direction. There's just an invisible wall here that stops you. But then you can climb up that. We did that one time before.
Reloading. Reloading. Reloading.
And I hear a
Down here.
exploder who's gonna probably vomit on me from off screen if I'm not careful.
I'm a reload.
Seems like the game wants you to go that way, so let's see what this is. Ah, this is nothing. It's a spawn closet. Okay, good to know. You can't get quite close enough to that. So it does want you to follow past this path, just zigzagging around obstacles.
We got a boomer.
Of course, then you have fire. This is probably a great way to settle an argument between two developers that say, hey, let's block this area off with a helicopter. No, let's block this area off with with a gas tank.
Reloading.
Why not both?
Reloading.
It is somewhat crazy that on the sides of yeah, I'm still not willing to waste energy trying to kill people with a chainsaw. That's another example of them intentionally placing cars with alarms so that you fail to sneak past. I have to assume you jump over here and that isn't an invisible wall. So now we're seeing several buses.
Adrenaline shot here.
Yeah, I don't get the idea of the helicopter crashing so much. Like, I get the idea of the cars leaving the road and all of that. And this is a great way to have a lot of cars on the road without actually having to have just a generic city section.
Yo, Spitter! Hey, I'm reloading.
There's not like a ton of secrets or anything happening, so
Reloading.
I feel like the female boomer probably should do something slightly different. That way you could visually mistake her for the male boomer and get confused.
I'm a reload.
For instance, it wouldn't have been crazy if her bile, instead of attracting zombies, actually detracts them, repels them, and so you want to actually run up to the female boomer and get exploded on, or she explodes and she explodes out the boomer vial instead of explosive damage, and then she throws something that or spits something that has explosive damage. So instead of being very far away, you want to run close to her. Or they could react exactly the same if you want to be somewhat lazy about it, and one could just do a fire damage versus one doing explosive damage.
Reloading.
I'm not sure we're gonna actually make it to the other side of this fence. All you have to really do on any of these levels, though, is just find the line and fire. I'm taking more damage from people shooting me in the back, which is crazy because a lot of times I'm like lower anyways and they're still shooting me in the back. Feels like they've gotten worse in this scenario than normal.
Pills.
They did take the pills. I assume we're not supposed to run back this way.
It's a spitter dude.
It's funny they call it a spitter dude, but whatever. At a certain point, these are just zombies. The idea of gender falls apart when you're propagating your new divergent species through the infection of a viral entity or viral load, which that would be how I would assume all zombies work, is that they have viruses controlling the corpses of humans, and zombies in effect are clusters of viral load more than individual humans.
Reload! Reload!
Here we got the Cena.
Charger around.
So we're gonna shoot a barrel
Look out
and
now!
fight the horde. So explosive barrels. We did see that there was an achievement for shooting the explosive barrel. So I suspect what we want to try to do.
We got some laser sights.
There you go. We'll take some laser sights, and that'll work with that gun, but not these guns.
Jockey!
Okay. Alright. So I want to throw this
Here
here.
you go. Chase this.
I can't get a single zombie to get near the explosive horde. They're just too good on easy.
Careful. Load around. Hey, I'm reloading.
Seriously? Why is it not working?
Move back, move back.
There we go. Finally. Apparently you have to use the other guns. So did we just cause a containment breach? It would be funny in a zombie game if it turned out that the characters you're playing as has been inadvertently releasing larger and larger hordes of zombies to attack more and more humans, making the outbreak much less manageable than it would have been otherwise.
Hey, I'm reloading.
It's probably worth it to come back here and grab some bullets. I feel like shooter games like this should probably give you some kind of benefit. What does that do? Sounds like it does a lot of damage.
Reloading.
Beware strong currents.
Reload.
So this is supposed to be like another another sewer section, I suppose. And I guess the question would be, do I, we'll just go in here. I guess we're going down this way? Or do zombies just spawn down this way non-stop? It's still very easy to not actually hit people. Interesting. So the safe house was at the bottom of the stairs, and that was an interesting experience that we did not see in any of the other scenarios. It was definitely a fairly difficult experience, even on easy, so it must be almost a nightmare experience on expert. And it's a trap. They only let you on. Apparently they've all decided to take other kinds of guns. Gun I have right now, I'm just gonna play with, I guess. Yeah, I'll just keep it. There's kind of nothing else here, just a table of weapons. Once again, this shows kind of like a game show concept. Why would somebody leave guns in the safe room? Why would somebody build safe rooms? The whole concept really feels contrived. I guess you just walk on the crumbling stairs to get up there. This is too dark, and I would have loved to have been able to turn up the brightness. And I guess what this really highlights is that you might as well just constantly shoot your gun to get more light. There's definitely a thought apparently we've got some armored zombies. Yeah, we had one of them.
Reload.
And so we're now coming up a bridge. Is this the other side of the bridge that was exploded, or is this a scenario that happened like at the beginning of the game, or as a prequel experience? That's once again one of the problems with having these scenarios not really be canonical. Hey, you have a boat over here. I think you probably could just walk in. Interesting. Just straight death. You don't grab a thing at all. And if anything, that was a genius move, because it was an accidental genius move. Because now I am much better suited, because it gave a lot more health kits to people and healed them up a lot more. So I'm gonna walk right through the center here. Nope. It looks broken, but it works just like regular stairs.
I'm a reload.
Once this horde decides to stop spawning. Oh, so the backs of those zombies just like explode out. You'd almost expect there to be a big thing. Like a big monstrous bulbous pustule glowing on the back of them. Alright, here's the spitter. Here's just a vent, just a zombie.
Reloading.
It's not well polished, certainly, to have scenarios where you can fall to your death. You almost wonder if there is maybe a slightly deeper story with this graffiti, but seems like it is completely just basic stuff. So my concern here is going to be what is different about being on this bridge versus the previous bridge sequence. Like, this is an interestingly
ammo here.
Short truck.
Charger! Reload!
Shooting them in the back after they're dead does not seem to explode their... doesn't seem to explode their backs.
Nice shot. Y'all better not shoot that car. My ass.
Here they come!
I did not completely realize that shooting it with an explosion still counted as shooting it.
Reloading.
Okay, well.
Reloading.
Seems like you're probably not designed to get up to the top of that. Seems like there's some barriers here that I don't feel like I saw these the last time we were on the bridge. Almost feels like they're trying to give us the greatest hits.
Some ammo right here. Reloading. Healing. Cover me, please.
Like they're trying to give us the greatest hits from the other scenarios. But I don't think that works. I just don't think that works as a concept.
Reloading.
You're supposed to squeeze around here. Jump up here? No. Guess we're supposed to come up this way again.
Pipe bomb here. I've got the crew. Pipe bomb all the way.
Is this a grenade launcher?
Grenade launcher here.
But they won't take the grenade launcher as a weapon either, will they? Nor is this particularly a great place to pick up a grenade launcher. Because best case scenario, I do something like this. And maybe I'm killing some stationary, still zombies, but more than likely I'm not doing anything at all. And since there are no bosses or anything in this game, no giant monsters, there's been no reason to have yeah, there's just been zero reason to have any grenade launchers. Notice that they didn't put any cars with alarms in the ways of these shots. didn't want to make it too difficult.
I'm gonna reload.
I don't know what
Reloading.
really triggered that explosion. It seems like we just walked near it and it exploded. Which, okay, I think that's exactly what happened. Now, are we supposed to go lower?
Down here.
It is difficult to say the
Ammo
least
here.
to figure out how to go down the ladder in a game where you've never gone down a ladder. Well, that's an awkward shot, and that feels like that was a placed zombie.
Reloading.
Well, that just made it more awkward. Well, that just made it more awkward.
Reloading.
So I think what we're doing is
Reloading. Hey, there's pipe bomb right here.
working our way down. Let's see if we can throw a water pipe bomb. Let's see what that
Hey, I'm
does.
reloading.
Where did that guy come from? So we see this like barriered off wet location. So I suspect the idea is that this
Reloading.
is the safe area we can
Reloading.
walk in the water on compared to the instant drown area, which that's just incredibly
No gun here.
inconsistent.
No. Hey, look over there. Laser sights here.
What is this gun?
Grabbing the chain gun.
So I got more of that gun. And I have a laser sight on that gun.
Reloading.
Suppose we're just supposed to run this direction. The Hunter's AI is
I'ma
programmed
reload.
pretty awfully. It doesn't jump in anything more than just kind of random directions half the
Gotta
time.
reload.
Seems like it's intentionally programmed just to fly through the sky.
Reloading.
Reloading.
You know what? I should
Hey,
heal.
can somebody watch my back? I'm gonna heal. That fixed me up real good. Reload.
Honestly, it feels like the armored zombie
Hey, I'm reloading.
barely even takes damage.
Reloading.
Reloading.
Down here.
Piles of bodies,
Adrenaline shot here.
adrenaline shots.
Grabbing a
This
shot.
definitely feels like a breakable wall. And this is just, I guess, a place where you could get a brief respite and some more guns if you needed to swap out. Then it's just moving further.
Y'all get ready now. Reload.
Reloading here.
I wasn't really expecting the zombies to come from behind.
Reloading.
Covered in goo.
Reloading.
So yeah,
Reloading.
Reloading.
We definitely know that the train section, the bridge section
Shotgun.
of the game was a little too long anyways, and was a long gauntlet experience. There we just saw zombies spawn in.
Reloading.
So I could see how this concept would have just made that too long and too redundant, whereas
Reloading.
We got a charger.
it would make more sense to potentially run into this scenario later in a different scene. Had this happened at the very beginning in the first scenario, that would have been fine. Now it feels like what we're doing is canonically going backwards to where we already have been.
Nightstick here.
Which would be fine if they just established that all the characters from Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 just have a natural immunity to zombies, and thus they have been made into the new zombie killing team that is in charge of going through areas to either try and save people or just kill zombies or collect some bit of data or research that's really important. I don't think a game like this, and frankly, I'll say that this is true for a lot of games. I don't think a game like this really benefits a lot from being given just slam an entire horde, a door on an entire horde there. Like different skins or like RPG mechanics just so that people play the multiplayer more. I don't think they really benefit from that. Dead Rising certainly went in that direction, but I don't know if Dead Rising, in my mind, wouldn't have been a better experience had people simply been able to play the story in a much shorter amount of time and in a straighter style of gameplay. Dead Rising's original gimmick of you will die, and it is basically a roguelike game, and yeah, every time you play you get more XP and level up, and you can go a little bit further because you've leveled up. That concept kind of falls apart even in the first game, and then it becomes more of a just a sandbox simulator with a lot of different weapons and a lot of different well, the photography mode also existed in Dead Rising 1. The photography mode was the mode that you got the experience to level up, and
Almost there.
I think there's a slight flaw in connecting those two, where it would make a lot more sense that you would get a lot more XP just killing zombies.
Hey, I got a firebomb here.
Okay. So we're gonna call a helicopter that is this up here? We've got several bombs. We got a chainsaw. So then the only real question is
Ammo.
what's out here? It's basically nothing. So far this scenario's been somewhat shorter. I'm almost gonna do it in an hour, but it definitely feels like they've opted to.
Hello.
Oh,
Hey, some guns here. Okay. See you soon. Thank you, sir. Throw the pipe bomb. It's a spitter. Grabbing a pipe bomb.
let's just go ahead and
All right, here you go.
throw that,
Chase this.
and then throw
Pipe bomb all
that,
the way.
and then take that. That's how all the bodies exploded. It seems like, to me, they are just gonna spawn more.
Reloading.
Gonna lay there all day? Oh, I'm fine.
And so we've
I'm
gone
reloading.
just kind of full circle now, and we're going down another stream. Which just would have been a great point to give a single character a line of dialogue that says, "Doesn't this feel familiar?" I have a sense of deja vu. Maybe this was an idea where the game and scenarios would just go in circles over and over again, but the multiplayer is basically already doing that, so there's really no reason to make a specific level that highlights that fact. That there's really nothing stopping you from making a lobby that plays maybe one scenario over and over again, possibly one chapter of a scenario over and over again if you really just wanted to practice with your group of pros.
Grenade.
Notice how they all kind of stopped.
Reload. Bill's here. That'll keep me for a bit. Reloading. Healing. Cover me, please. Jockey.
Yeah, we really are just going in circles here. I am now out of that gun, so I don't know if that would have been the way this would have worked any other time.
Reloading.
We should have seen more sequences like this. Yeah, I like the lighting here, particularly in this setup too. Because it's not just pitch black for pitch black's sake. They're coming down that way.
Hey! Chase this!
is kind of like the worst place to throw a grenade. I assume someone else had coach. Let's see. So there's a lot going on here, and I don't think it's going to stop.
Hey, I'm reloading. I got some ammo right here.
It'd be great and all, but
Reloading!
I don't have any guns. So this is same sequence as before, except for we are just running now in a different way. Gargantuan is coming, and I think I will just decide to. Where's the helicopter? How do we get up higher? Oh, you take the light. Are we gonna help him up? Alright, there we go. There's nothing in here. There's definitely stuff I'm missing.
Let's go, guys. Get to the chopper.
Hey, we get to actually see a guy. I wonder if I could have seen that before, and it just triggered the exit before that point. Nothing wrong with that scenario. It is basically the same as all the other scenarios. It seems like it learned the lessons from the parish and improved because of that. Much shorter at 56 minutes, and I think that's probably a smart move also. I wouldn't have died that one time if I hadn't fallen in the water. There definitely is some lack of polish, and I still feel like all these should have some kind of boss character and way more story, and it shouldn't just be this generic template for running through a scenario in four-player co-op. The problem, certainly now 12 years later, that I have yet to really mention is Killing Floor and Killing Floor 2. Because Killing Floor, as a game, has taken the general idea of four-player co-op and expanded it so only some of the levels are zombies, but some of the times the levels are the enemies are demons, some of the times the enemies are bugs, some of the times the enemies are aliens. They've expanded it way more. Maybe somebody who's smarter than me could explain the intricacies of the difference between Left 4 Dead 2 and Killing Floor, but I think just on the fact that the entirety of the Killing Floor 1 and 2 has existed for so long, you have this scenario where they've probably polished themselves well enough to to account for anything or improve upon and steal ideas from Left 4 Dead, Left 4 Dead 2, several other games that would have had general concepts like Left 4 Dead. I'm going to try and rush through the scenario fairly quickly with the developer commentary.
In Left 4 Dead 2, we wanted to give players who were looking for a narrative a little more. To do this, we introduced the 4 survivors to each other and the infection as we begin the game. This lets us see the world changing through their eyes, and the world is changing. Each new campaign shows a different stage in reaction to the infection. We start with Sita's naive, underwhelming response, and end with the military's cold but needed resolve to save only those they can. We also connect each campaign. So while you escape Whispering Oaks and Dark Carnival, you also know that it's just one escape of many on your journey to safety in New Orleans. Time does pass between campaigns, but each campaign starts with the previous rescue vehicle. We also continue to spread hints and clues to the infection. There is more story in the dialogue this time around, but players should still search for and read graffiti and notes in the world. Observant players of Left 4 Dead will notice some tie-ins to the story as both games are set in the same world.
The new Special Infected were designed with a variety of goals in mind. They needed to fill in gaps left by the other specials. They needed to provide interesting combos with other Infected. And they needed to offer a new, fun set of skills for players to master, whether they were playing as or against the Infected. When we began Left 4 Dead 2, we had a list of several dozen Infected types that have been discussed over the past several years. We added a fair number of new designs to those, and eventually whittled our list down to the final 3, the Charger, the Spitter, and the Jockey. The best Survivor teams stick close together and buckle down under attack, quickly fending off Infected attacks.
Hey, I'm reloading.
To provide an opening for the Infected to capitalize upon, we created the Charger. His charge attack not only separates members from the group, but will bowl down tightly clumped survivors, giving a few crucial moments for the other Infected to attack. The only non-boss Infected who is immune to being bashed, his design encourages players to keep a quick trigger finger and a watchful eye on their companions, while also keeping their distance. The Spitter's area of denial attack serves a variety of purposes. While the initial pool of acid permits a few moments for escape, its damage increases as the acid begins to do its work.
I don't know why they didn't spawn these
Lingering
with
in
no
or passing
AI.
through the pool of acid is a dangerous proposition, and it can quickly force a group of survivors out of a tight spot, or drive a wedge between members of a group. The Jockey is the one special that retains control after he's begun his incapacitating attack. He's also the only special that allows a survivor to maintain enough control to fight back. A well-played Jockey has many ways of driving a survivor to a deadly end, either at the hands of other Infected, or through the environment itself. Just getting a survivor far enough out of the group for another special to prey upon is often the Jockey's greatest strength. All of these special types provide unique opportunities for combined attacks alongside the classic Hunter, Smoker, and Boomer.
So they only added 3 characters and the female Boomer, I suppose. That doesn't seem like a lot. What's interesting is they said they went over a list of Special Infected they had been talking about for years. Well, this game was released exactly 1
There's a
year
bio bomb right there.
after the first game, so what they must mean by that is that they stopped adding content. They basically took the game out of alpha and Left 4 Dead 1 out of alpha years before it was released, which that would make sense somewhat. That for the first year they decided what was going to be in the game, and then they spent 2, maybe 3 years just polishing up the gameplay to make it a more enjoyable experience.
The park started out having several paths that were dynamically changed for added replayability. However, playtesters found the paths confusing. When we removed the dynamic objects that forced survivors to go in certain directions, we found that having all paths open led to a better experience. Players still spend a lot of time in the park, but they could choose to go different ways every time they played the level.
See, and I can't agree with that idea at all. Like, this is the second time in developer commentary where I've heard them talk about what sounds like a really cool idea in the future, and then just for them to say they took it out and didn't implement it for mostly game tester feedback. This might be one of those games that just shows that game testers don't know what they're talking about and are easily manipulated. And you shouldn't probably listen to them and just make the game you want.
Shoot that son of a bitch in the back.
There you go. How about that?
Firebomb incoming.
Everybody can just go after him.
Weapons over here.
Yeah, we didn't even get into the central area.
I wish we had a horse. I love horses.
Never eat horse? Stacy.
So I didn't even get into this area when I played this.
With the added variety of weapons in Left 4 Dead 2, we wanted to encourage players to scavenge weapons and switch between them frequently.
Hey, some guns here.
We
And
found
yet
that placing
you give
ammo piles
constant
scattered through the
ammo
level fought
piles.
against this goal, as players tended to find one gun they liked and then never switch, as long as they had practically endless ammo.
Yes.
We experimented with removing ammo piles from most of the environments, so that the only way to get more ammo was to find a new gun, and we immediately saw players switching weapon types more frequently.
So why isn't that in the game?
We also experimented with giving players deployable ammo packs, similar to the upgrade packs, such as the incendiary and explosive ammo that are in the game today. Carrying an ammo pack was perceived as being less valuable than carrying a health kit, though, and many players bypassed the item, counting on finding another gun along the way. We found it was important, however, to continue to place ammo piles in the finale areas, to give players a home base to fight from in the longer set-piece battles.
Ammo here.
And see, so the amount of ammo piles we see in this final product is after they had already removed a lot of ammo piles, which just means there must have been
Reloading.
a massive amount of ammo piles throughout the game.
Reloading.
Look out!
Yeah. I think you could easily have reduced the amount of ammo piles, and you could have certainly almost completely removed it. Now, I do agree with them that in the final boss battles, it makes sense to encourage.
Them backs ain't bulletproof. Pipe bomb out.
Yeah, those explosions do just knock those bodies.
Make sure you use this now.
Thanks.
I owe you one. They'll pick me up. That's good.
Let's see.
Pipe bomb here. Grenade! Pipe bomb, baby.
You can grab weapons and pickups very far away. So I guess there's no other documentary thing until this point.
The animators experimented quite a bit with the movement styles of the new special infected in order to help them contrast with the existing specials. Some early passes at the spitter featured awkward, bouncy, bird-like movements with knock knees and pigeon toes. She certainly looked different, but it was a little too humorous and didn't project enough of a feeling of strength and danger. So she ended up with much more aggressive posing and actions.
Hey, I'm reloading.
We tried a few animal-inspired runs for the jockey, including sideways leaping hops like a lemur and a four-legged hyena-like gallop. These fit with his maniacal laughter, but again, needed to be more aggressive. Such movements also would have caused problems maneuvering the character and reading its intentions in-game, especially in versus mode. They also seemed too much of a mutation from the character's original human state when considering the amount of time from the start of his infection. The jockey's final movement pass has him on two legs with just the right touch of animal inspiration. a menacing, predatory hunch, and hands bent rather like a praying mantis, ready to give survivors a big, deadly hug.
Let me hear you.
So
That's what friends are
that
for.
nearly killed Rochelle.
That worked.
First aid. Pills here.
It's funny how they kind of walk backwards to pick up pills.
In Left 4 Dead 1, long narrow hallways usually meant relative safety for survivors. One player could cover the front, and another could cover the rear, while players in the middle healed. With the addition of the charger, however, the long and narrow hallways in Left 4 Dead 2 turn out to be extremely dangerous.
Was there supposed to be a charger that attacked during that? I will say, to talk about the previous line of developer commentary, there is like some too animalistic appearance of the spitter and the charger in particular.
Weapons over here.
The spitter and the hyena, actually. The jockey. Spitter and jockey. But I can't really complain about it too much because I can't really offer a better solution, and at certain points when you're making monsters, any monster is equally as good as any other monster in my book, because it is supposed to be a creation of almost 100% pure imagination.
The two overpasses in this area continue throughout the rest of the campaign, and eventually meet up with the bridge that the survivors must cross to escape. When we initially designed the campaign, we planned for these overpasses to guide players to their eventual goal.
And yet it didn't. It's like half of these developer commentaries are just like, yeah, we thought we were going to do these cool things, yet we didn't do these cool things. We're not explaining why we didn't do these cool things, because the explanation is probably somebody higher up killed the project halfway in development, or rushed it out. I'd argue it probably was rushed out, coming out a year later, whereas almost no other Valve game ever comes out, so it would certainly, it does by Valve time feel extremely rushed. Although, in all fairness, I guess I should applaud the person who rushed it out and made sure it actually happened.
Gotta agree with that.
Just take that.
Bill's here. Grabbing first aid.
The alarm scenario at the bus station was the first Left 4 Dead 2 crescendo event to feature the Gauntlet mode, where players must navigate along a path to deactivate the zombie rush. This proved to be a successful approach to countering the camping strategy of finding an optimal corner and holding out.
And I agree with that it is a nice concept, but it kind of fails miserably in that it's only in like this scenario and one other. There's several other scenarios where if there is a gauntlet mode, it just does not
Left 4 Dead 1 had a good, fictionally justifiable cast of guns, the M16 being a standard police and military weapon, for example. In Left 4 Dead 2, we had the opportunity to do something a bit less generic and use some more interesting guns, while still being aware that we had to justify their place in the game.
These aren't like
the Desert Rifle, for example, is used to suggest that the military had rerouted guns meant for the Middle East back to deal with the domestic crisis, hence the desert camouflage scheme on the gun. The ever-popular AK-47, which is actually part AK-74, is so plentiful that it's easy to justify its appearance almost anywhere, whereas the silenced SMG is more of an underground, criminal-looking weapon, so it's interesting to think how this has found its way into the survivors' hands. The hunting rifle from Left 4 Dead 1 is back, and we've added a military sniper rifle which is double the clip size and is more of a scoped semi-automatic assault rifle, rather than the classic bolt-action sniper rifle, which would be ineffective against the Horde.
There's a
Left
better
4
way
Dead
to
2
present this
also
than
features a
putting them
variety
on
of
the
pistols, including a custom civilian handgun, a standard issue police sidearm, and a large caliber magnum.
Yeah, but you can't see both guns, so I don't know which one is the gun on the left hand, the police sidearm, or the gun on the right hand. I bet the gun in the left hand would be the police sidearm. And they don't mention any of the melee weapons. And the gauntlet mode is just not activated at all. So this is a great instance in which you can just look around when I had to run before. Not that there's really anything to see.
Because Left 4 Dead 1 took place entirely during the night, it was fairly straightforward to light the path we wanted players to take. For campaigns that take place during the day, we had to find other tools to help the player along. The most valuable tools were visible landmarks, such as gas station signs, overpasses, the bridge, and smoke from wrecked aircraft.
Get to the alarm!
And see, they put this in just like the wrong place. It would have made sense to put a second ladder there, and a ladder there even. Have 3 people walking up the ladder
We gotta turn off the
all
alarm.
at once.
As with our efforts to replace the first aid kit, replacing the pain pills item was a challenge. Initial versions of Adrenaline allowed players to run faster and perform certain actions faster, such as reviving other players. But the pills already give 50 temporary health points, which is enough health for injured players to run at full speed again, so the Adrenaline needed something extra. We expanded the actions that could be affected by Adrenaline, shortening the time it takes to use health kits, defibrillators, and upgrade packs. We sped up the player beyond their normal maximum speed and made them resistant to being slowed down by hits from the infected. Although it doesn't give as much health as the pain pills, we found many interesting strategies began to emerge from the well-timed use of Adrenaline.
I didn't even know that you slowed down your run rate when you took damage. That's just how incredibly unnoticeable it happened to be. And sure, maybe if I had played Left 4 Dead 1 and Left 4 Dead 2 a ton, I would have eventually realized that. But I very possibly would have never realized it. It's interesting, certainly, to hear them remind me that almost all of Left 4 Dead 1 took place during the night. Like, why didn't all of Left 4 Dead 2 take place during the night? Or at least more of it take place during the night. Well, I can't say I would have really liked that, because Left 4 Dead 2 in particular, not being able to turn up the brightness, is fairly dark whenever you get inside. So the shift between bright outside during the
Bottle of puke here.
Daytime and what you would see during
Throwing a firebomb.
Yeah. The shift there does kind of make some sense, that you would want some dark sections and bright lit sections. But it definitely changes the tone and makes Left 4 Dead 2 much more of an action game than a horror game.
As we added more special infected characters to Left 4 Dead 2, we faced a challenge in designing unique sounds for them that players could easily recognize and distinguish from the other specials and from the common infected. In Left 4 Dead, the 4 male specials each had both a distinct tonal range and a character attribute to keep them unique. For instance, the Boomer's vocalizations were kind of a slow, deep, bassy, gastric horror. As we added the new specials into the mix, it became increasingly difficult to avoid impinging on the sonic space of the previous specials. We found that we couldn't rely so much on using the tonal range for distinction, and instead had to push harder on characterization to help them to read clearly to players. For example, the jockey is in the high, bright tonal range of the smoker, and even the upper end of the hunter. But since the infection has left his brain in a constant state of hysterical mania, his vocalizations read clearly apart from these other specials. Sometimes it can be challenging to find a characterization that will lend itself to both a special's active and idle or lurking modes. For instance, with the Charger, we started out with a non-verbal angry muttering, kind of a griping bark that we all liked. Though the personality in his idle states was interesting and distinct, we found that we needed to ramp his vocalizations up to a more sustained yell for his attacks to get the right sonic intensity for these events. In subsequent playtests, however, we found that players were often surprised when attacked by the Charger, as they would associate him only with the aggressive attack vocalizations he makes from the point that he sees them through his charge, and since he would generally see players before they saw him, they didn't have a chance to connect him with the angry, non-verbal mutterings of his idle states. So we ended up recording new vocalizations for these states, mixing in elements of his more strident calls and yells amid the gripes and barks of his idle states, so that players could more readily make the leap to recognizing a lurking Charger in the vicinity.
I once again have to point out that I could not tell from the audio cue crescendo sounds of the music what kind of zombie is coming out, nor was I able to really distinctly tell from the screeching of the zombie what kind of special infected is about to attack. And it really didn't matter because they usually would spawn only a few feet away from you anyways, and so by the time they would make their first sound, they were already visible or attacking you.
The Source Engine's animation system is a powerful tool that lets us create animations procedurally instead of authoring each of them individually by hand.
Yeah.
There are various reasons for doing
modern
this,
engine
which become clear
this.
when we consider the challenge of animating the jockey riding a survivor.
I had no
At the
idea
start of the
his
jockey's
face looked
design,
like
we
this.
wanted the survivor to be
You
able to
never
fight
get
back to
close
some
enough.
degree. With that in mind, we decided it would be vital for the survivor to know the jockey's intent, regardless of how successful he was at acting on it. So even though you may be stuck against the table going nowhere with a jockey on your back, we want you to understand that the jockey is really trying to get you out that door at the end of the room and around a corner where your friends can't help you. To accomplish this, we implemented a system of animation layers for the survivor that would work in conjunction with the jockey. These layers are attached to different controls that the code interacts with, called pose parameters. The first layer consists of the survivor's upper body from the waist up, which allows the survivor's reactions to work in sync with the jockey's motion. The second layer is the survivor's locomotion, constrained to the lower half of his body from the waist down. So, in the scenario we just described,
He kind of looks like
the
a
jockey is in
clown.
full control and has a clear path to the door. The code tells the upper body of the survivor and the body of the jockey to lean in that direction, and sets a pose parameter for the survivor's legs to move along that vector as well. However, things get more interesting when the survivor regains some control and steers himself to get stuck on the table. Even though you have stopped moving towards the door, we don't want the jockey's animation to suddenly sit straight up and give the impression he isn't still trying to steer you there. By splitting the survivor's animation into two different animation layers that we composite together, your upper body and the jockey can remain leaning towards the door, while the code tells the legs to
I
stop
wonder
walking
if this
because
is
you're stuck
supposed to
on the
be
table
like
and
an
can't
old
advance.
man who turned
This
into
robust
a
system
zombie.
of procedurally compositing upper and lower body
Older
animation layers
middle-aged
and position
man,
in
I
real
guess by
time,
the
as we've
hair.
shown in this case, saved us a lot of authoring time as well as memory inside the game, both of which are finite and very valuable on any project.
I suppose that animation works fairly well, but it is always worth pointing out that Unreal Engine has all kinds of animation technology that would, in my opinion, not really being an expert on it, I think blow it out of the water. I can certainly, if I claim to be an expert video game player, I can certainly state that the general acceptance as far as what engine is chosen to use to be used in video game development is Unreal Engine, whereas Source Engine has an incredibly small number of games that have been made with that, and that number is not increasing. And Source Engine 2 has been long in development and not really likely to come out to any large fanfare. And see, that definitely is going to be a problem with any Valve game. So at a certain point, it might make a lot of sense for Valve to remake all of their games in the Unreal Engine, but they can't do that because Epic, the company Epic, owns the Unreal Engine, always has, I think, and you would be effectively admitting defeat to an enemy, a business competitor, if you were to remake it in the Unreal Engine, which then that would mean that you would have to remake all Valve games in some other first-person shooter engine that isn't the Source engine or the Unreal Engine, and maybe you could try to do it in the Unity engine. It probably wouldn't be easy or succeed very well. Otherwise, you're going to have to start thinking about licensing it and rebuilding your games in something like the Crysis engine or the Frostbite engine, one of the internal engines that big AAA publishers tend to have and use. Oh, that mutation icon is the same image, or at least the same base image. It's been changed as the image on the newspaper. Anyways, we've gone an hour and 30 minutes, and next time we'll do the last scenario, and we may literally just finish the game by doing the last scenario and the last bits of the development or commentary. We should try probably versus and survival. Try some of these online sections just to give them a chance, but I seriously doubt I'm going to put any real time in trying to play the online stuff, even though it does seem like there's a decent number of people still playing Left 4 Dead 1 and Left 4 Dead 2. There probably is a slightly growing number these days as there's hype for Back 4 Blood, but I imagine the number of people playing Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 will drop severely once Back 4 Blood comes out. And honestly, I haven't mentioned it yet, but I should say, normally during the Halloween month, in which I try to play horror games, I try to play games that are a lot more scary than Left 4 Dead, which is just a kind of generic zombie shooter. Thank goodness in 2021 we are not overrun with zombie shooters anymore. But the fact that Back 4 Blood was coming out made me decide to play these games, but yeah, they're not really scary. Anyways, that's it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.